Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Aquademia podcast. I'm Maddie Cassidy.
I'm Sean O'Loughlin.
And Justin's not here with us today.
Nope.
But you have the dynamic duo coming at you with a really exciting interview with Imani Black, who is the founder and CEO of Minorities in Aquaculture. And this is someone that I have wanted to have on the podcast for a while, so I'm really excited about this episode. Minorities in aquaculture is such an important topic, and we have a lot of great conversations surrounding that in this episode.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's a really great episode. But before we get into it, make sure that you are subscribed to Aquademia on your podcast platform of choice so that you can get every episode downloaded to your device right when it comes out.
If you want to contact us, you can follow us on Twitter at AquademiaPod, or you can visit globalseafood.org/podcast. Fill out the contact form that gives you an option if you want to suggest guest recommendations or topic suggestions, or if you want to sponsor the podcast, you can contact us through that form. It will come directly to us.
And lastly, since we're giving you all these instructions, we might as well give you one more. If you like the show, if you like this episode, we would really appreciate it if you leave us a rating and review on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, because that really helps the show climb up the ratings and get into more people's ears.
That's right. Did you get all that?
So now let's get into the interview with Imani.
Welcome to the Aquademia podcast.
Our diet is hurting the environment in myriad ways. I mean, we desperately need to eat more seafood.
This is a pioneering industry with a whole lot of people who have really good ideas and a lot of experience and are unafraid.
Aquademia is your go-to podcast for a fresh take on all things seafood.
Okay, today we are sitting down with Imani Black, and I personally am so excited for this episode. I'm kind of a super fan of Imani's. And also, this is a topic that we haven't addressed on the podcast before, so I'm really excited to get into this.
Maddie has been super excited about this
I've been talking about it for weeks.
That's why we're letting her run the show. This is your show, Maddie.
So I found you on Twitter, Imani, like a few months ago. And then I told Sean, I think Imani would be such a great guest for the podcast. So we reached out to her. She graciously agreed to come on the show. So welcome to Aquademia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yay.
I just saw, was it Jennifer Bushman? Give you a shout out. It's so funny. It's like such a small world where like all these people that we're connected with are starting to talk to each other. I love it.
Oh yeah, no, Jen and I, it's funny because we just had a meeting yesterday. And we were like, I don't think we've actually had like a full conversation. We've only talked on IG Live for things. So that was like pretty cool just to like sit down with her for like 45 minutes and just like chat and, you know, work on things together and things like that. It's been amazing, the people that I've gotten to meet just through this opportunity. And I just would never have like even imagined the people that I've like would have connected with right now. So
yeah. Well, she's a great person to be connected to, for sure.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's funny, Maddie, that you said you found me on Twitter because I have been so against getting back on Twitter for so long. I thought Twitter was going to die 10 years ago. So like when people were like, when people were like, oh yeah, like science, academia, like it's all on Twitter. I was like, why? Like,
yeah, that's something that I actually wanted to talk about in this episode is how Twitter is like having a resurgence right now, especially in the scientific world. I feel like so many scientists and researchers are coming to Twitter and like flocking to Twitter, and there's such a great community on there. And basically what I'm saying is if you're a listener and you're not on Twitter yet, you definitely should be because there's so much great information, infographics, videos about so many different topics.
I'm so bad at Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
so bad.
You're not a Twitter guy.
I'm not good at Twitter.
I'm not either. I'm not good at social media. Like if I wasn't doing what I am doing now, I probably would be like off the grid social media wise. But like now I'm like having to be forced to be like on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
I'm like a rabid consumer of social media. Like I will scroll for hours on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, but I rarely actually contribute to much on there. And Twitter, I can't even, I have to like make myself look at Twitter and like read through it. It's it doesn't work for me, but it's huge for a lot of people. It's important to be on there. I just
Yeah.
Maddie is in charge of our Twitter account mostly, and because for that reason, I'm not good at it.
Right. Yeah. No. And I like hadn't been on Twitter probably since like, I want to say like when I was in college, so like 2011. So I had like all of these tweets from like high school and like things like that like on, and I got a notification when I re-downloaded it on my phone like that people were starting to follow me, and I was like, oh no, like I had to go through a whole purge of this like
time to be relevant
things.
again.
Yeah, ridiculous things. I was like, people that were like doctors and like researchers and stuff were following. I was like, I have to go through this, or like people are gonna be like, what? Imani, like what is
hilarious.
this?
Like tweeting song lyrics and
Oh my God, just like the cringiest things. My gosh. Yes.
I remember, so I think I was in college or finishing college when Twitter became a thing, and I didn't get it. They're like, it's just Facebook statuses. There's no pictures. It's just words. And I'm like, where's the fun in that? and I kind of had this like bias against it from the beginning because I was like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, it was definitely big when I was in high school, and exactly like that. It was like we would do cringy Facebook, statuses, and now you could just do that rapidly on Twitter. It was not a good mix. Not a good mix at all.
That's funny.
So for our listeners who aren't familiar with you, Imani, how about you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've been up to the past few years, and why you're involved with aquaculture?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Imani Black again. Technically right now, I am a master's student at Horn Point Laboratory in Cambridge through University of Maryland, College Park. And in the MEAS program, which is like Marine Environmental Science program. And now I'm also the founder and CEO of a nonprofit called Minorities in Aquaculture, which is a community-based organization where we bring women of color that are currently in aquaculture or interested in aquaculture together to be empowered and educated, while also providing them with, career development resources and ways to mitigate the barriers that, minorities and women of color and just women in general face going into marine sciences. So I was an oyster farmer I've been an oyster farmer. I still like to say I'm an oyster farmer for the last 6 years before all of this. And I originally got into it just because I'm from the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I've always been into restoration and conservation and knew that I wanted to do something in that, like for my career. And so I went to Old Dominion University, studied marine biology, thought I was going to go the tropical biology route, but wasn't really, the spark that I was looking for as far as career path. And then I had an opportunity to intern with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation doing oyster restoration in Virginia. And that experience just kind of really validated for me that I wanted to do something in the Chesapeake Bay. So after that, I got into shellfish aquaculture at Virginia Institute of Marine Science at their oyster aquaculture training program. And I've just been in aquaculture ever since then. So, things in my career have progressed a lot, and they've changed. 2020 was I like to call the year of redirection.
That's a positive way of putting it.
That is, yeah. I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like we definitely have validation to like just really sit with 2020 and feel like really crappy about it. And I think that once I really looked at the, months and the year that followed 2020, I really, all the things that happened in 2020 were the best things that ever happened to my life. Like none of the things that I'm doing now would be what they are. They wouldn't even be in existence if the things didn't happen in 2020. So I try to be super grateful for it. Because, right now life is pretty crazy and it's pretty great. So nothing really to complain about there. So that's the short version. I'll just leave it there.
So thank you so much for giving us that background, Imani. I feel like putting it in the perspective of 2020 is really great, especially because in the US, 2020 is when the Black Lives Matter movement had a huge resurgence. So I'm wondering if that had an impact on you starting Minorities in Aquaculture.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely one of the catalysts for me just like really diving into MIA. Before I started MIA, I had no idea how to start a nonprofit, even like what it went into it or anything. But, I lost my job in May of 2020, and that was completely unexpected. And so, I was obviously feeling some type of way about my career, for like a year leading up to that. And then that situation happened. And so I was just like, in a place where I just felt lost in an industry that I really loved. And it ended up being a week before George Floyd. And
Wow.
the place that I was working at, while I did learn really great, skills there and, really develop my career, the remote location that we were in, at times I didn't really feel comfortable as a person of color. And so again, I look back at 2020 and I'm like, wow, like all of that happened for a reason. Because I don't think that I would have felt comfortable where I was after, like during the George Floyd everything.
Right. So a blessing in disguise almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, with that, just being a person of color, you just feel some type of way about it, I think naturally. I think what really kind of shook me in that was Ahmaud Arbery, who, was tragically killed when he was out for a jog. And the way that I found out about that was I came back from a jog and saw that on my phone. So I had already been kind of in a space of like, oh my God, like, what does this like mean? Like, how do I feel about this? Like all this stuff. And then, when it really got the surge that it did, the aquaculture community really disappointingly had no real reaction, to what was happening. There wasn't too many people in my orbit that I was seeing. This was when I wasn't really dived into the community I am in now, but no one was really even speaking up about it or even, putting out, just like condolences or just like support for that for our community of minorities. And so, yeah, it wasn't until a couple organizations were like, oh yeah, we're going to bring this conversation to our conferences and forums, and our, in events and things like that, to help, move this forward in aquaculture. And I was like, well, like conferences are like over $500 to go to. And like,
they're not always accessible.
Not always accessible at all. So I was like, who's going to be a part of that conversation? Like, who's really going to be sitting at that table? And like, why is it that our first action item is to bring it to a conversation? Like, when you start doing action. So, I was going through a lot of like imposter syndrome during that time, but I really like sat with that moment at my kitchen table and was like, I guess this is like really bigger than me, it seems like. And, yeah, I started, the application process for my nonprofit then. So, yeah, July, we officially became a 501c3.
What was that process like? Like, did you hit any roadblocks that really kind of stuck out throughout that process? Like, I like you said, when you were starting, I would have no idea where to even begin. So,
yeah, I think just the whole experience. Like, you don't know something until you know it, and diving into that, I was like, reading a ton of books and online all the time for every single step of that process. And luckily, I, as of right now, according to the IRS, I did everything right, which I'm super surprised.
Right. There you go.
Right. So I give myself a pat on the back because, yeah, it's just like.
Wipe that sweat off your brow.
Right. I was just like, all right. So I did the best that I could and it happened to be right. That's all I could ask for. So, yeah.
So what are some of the projects that you work on at MIA, and how are ways that, actually, let's just start off with that question. What are some projects that you work on with MIA?
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool things, coming out this year and like, in the next coming years. For this year, we're really focused on our internship program. So we've have, a growing partner list of aquaculture farmers, other aquaculture organizations, nutrition organizations, seafood processors. Like, we're really trying to give an overall experience like in the career of aquaculture to our members. We have about 50 members right now, most of them on the East Coast and West Coast, but we do a few international Norway, Sri Lanka, Italy. So, really our biggest thing is to give, have the opportunities for them so that they can really start exploring different avenues of aquaculture. And all those women, by the way, are already in their own lane of aquaculture.
Wait, hold on. When did you become a 501c3?
We became a 501c3 in July of 2020.
And you already have 50 members.
Yeah. Yeah.
International.
Girl.
So when you talk about this internship program and these different members, are these members places that people like women and people of color can get internships at, those members?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our member list right now is all women of color. I know that the name Minorities in Aquaculture makes it seem like it's more broad, and I definitely am, in the horizons, like going to expand it to all minorities. But I think, when you look at like the history of commercial fishing and of, just everything, there's so many little accounts about minorities in general. But there's so little accounts about women and women of color in those spaces. And so I really wanted to honor the women of color that came before us and like really focus on that demographic specifically for a while, and then kind of expand it. So yeah, there are opportunities that, I really get input from them on, kind of, things that we already kind of had in the works, but I really try to shape it based off of like what their needs are. I tell them all the time that, yeah, guys, like my face might be on this bus of change. I might be the driver, but like you guys are the ones that are giving me directions. Like we take MIA where we feel like it's best, not where I feel like it's best. 'Cause I'm just one of the community. I'm not the community in itself. So I might be the advocate, but like I need to know what you guys need me to advocate for, type of thing. So
there is so much power in being specific when you start things off. I think that that's something that we run into a lot at GSA is because we are serving the global seafood industry.
Right.
It's really easy to get overwhelmed because there are just so many avenues that you can go down. So I think starting off with a really specific audience of women of color is the best way to do it. And then you can replicate that out once you expand.
Well, it's nice, Imani, that it starts with you, right? It starts with one person. For your example, Maddie, when we're trying to do different projects here, we have so many people that are involved when we try to start a project, and they all have their niche that they kind of the world that they live in, right? So, we'll try to start a pilot program for something, and they'll say, well, how does that impact farmers in Thailand,
Bangladesh, yeah.
and then someone else is saying, well, hold on, that doesn't benefit the folks down in Latin America, and so then it just becomes this big broad thing that it just gets out of control. So I think, yeah, I agree. I think your approach is definitely the way to go because you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And prove that it works before you can start growing it into and expanding it. So I agree, Maddie. I think that's a good good way to look at it. You
would be surprised though. I get a few emails and a few messages, initially being very kind of like, is this like servicing men of color as well? And, I like so graciously, I say, the spiel that I just said of I'm trying to honor, women of color that came before us and, really start to pave out, that pathway for us. And then it's just like, well, I thought that you're about diversity and inclusion and you're excluding men of color. And I'm like, but is there not other organizations that only focus on one group at a time? Like the whole time? Like, it's not like I'm the first organization that's like, nope, only women of color. Like there are other, there are other organizations that do that too. So, it's silly. Totally. And I understand. I definitely want to open it up. I really want to focus on, the women right now. I really want to focus on getting them to where they feel like, and we feel like as a woman of color, just like demographic that we are starting to like really make changes.
And I'm sure from the get-go, you knew that was going to happen, right? you got to know that stuff's going to come out of the woodwork.
I mean, I knew, but like I was kind of, I was preparing myself for the diversity and inclusion part to be the one that gets like a lot of the attention part of it, which is why like, DEI is so important to MIA. Like it's definitely one of the founding pillars of it. But I really tried to, and I try still to really get people to understand that like you know, I come from a 200-year long like legacy of watermen on the Chesapeake. Like, I really do honor traditional watermen and the things that they have done for our commercial fishing and the things that they still do, and the knowledge that that marine occupation like holds and the heritage that it holds. So like really like by bringing in new people or like, you know, uplifting a certain demographic in aquaculture is like, to me in my own way, like really honoring that, because aquaculture is this new wave of commercial fishing. And it's really like going to be the focal point of our sustainable seafood resource. So for me, it's like, well, minorities were already in that space. And so I'm just like bringing us along for like the next train ride type of thing. So not that I'm trying to, you know, make aquaculture only about diversity and inclusion, but it's more just about that I really honor traditional, you know, watermen. I honor what aquaculture is doing for us, like as an industry, not by like the people that are like doing it. And I just so happen to be a woman of color. So like, why not connect with the people, the women that look like me?
Going back to what you said a little bit earlier about how you're the advocate, but it's really about what your audience and your community needs. I think that that is a really important point, because we actually experienced something similar to that recently, where we were going to start this project and then someone was like, wait, hold up. Does this align with what these people that we're trying to help actually need?
Right.
And it's good to like take a step back, and instead of just deciding for people what you think is a good idea, listening to them and then creating solutions for them is so much more valuable in the short term and the long term.
And that's the step that a lot of people skip.
Yes. Absolutely. I feel like we really don't meet people where they are in their environmental education. You know, we expect things to be like very one size fits all, of like, oh, this is a really great program. And I had that in the beginning of like, you know, people coming to me, blowing up my email of like all these like, you know, projects and programs that they wanted MIA to jump on. And, you know, they were great, but I had to be like, okay, well, what audience is this for? And they're like, oh, well, like underserved communities. And I was like, I'm really not trying to be rude, but those students will not care about that. Like, you know, and not because they won't care about it because it's not important or because this isn't like set up or developed correctly. But I just mean like, you're talking about things that they probably have never even seen before. Like, how can you talk about oyster aquaculture when someone's never held an oyster before? How can you talk about it in a classroom just by pictures? Like, how can you talk to somebody who doesn't even have a relationship with water to begin with? That's not how we get the longevity of people really changing their relationship with our environment and wanting to care about it. Like, it has to be in baby steps. We have to be like, okay, well, what do you know about this? And then build on it from there, and then add the steps into it so that it's like over time, the flame gets like more ignited instead of just like an initial spark that like they get excited about, but then when they go home, that's not what they see in their everyday life. So they can't make that connection. So then that becomes like a pipe dream once you leave that classroom.
Right. So much of the seafood industry kind of happens behind closed doors, especially aquaculture. And it's people in the industry know all about these things, and there are some amazing things happening. But this is a common theme of things that come up on the podcast is we don't do a great job of communicating that to people who should know about it or might be curious about knowing about it.
That's the vacuum. We haven't talked about the vacuum in a long time. If you're a listener, if you've binged the show from the beginning, or if you've been with us since the beginning, you know what I'm talking about when I say the vacuum. But like you just said, the entire industry works within this closed community, and we love getting together and raising each other up, patting each other on the back, and saying, you know, celebrating and giving each other awards for all these great things that are happening. But if you're not in the industry, you have no idea any of that stuff is happening. If you're in the industry, all you're seeing is a lot of the fear-mongering advertisements on Facebook and the, you know, the viral misinformation that is out there. And that is breaking that wall to get out of that vacuum is one of the biggest challenges that the industry has been facing for like ever.
Yeah, it all comes back to education, which I think you and Minorities in Aquaculture is doing a great job of addressing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think also too, you know, one of the things that, you know, I've really just been focusing on is that labor shortage and that labor gap that we have in aquaculture that people are talking about, but like no one's like really putting a lot of like severity into. You know, I just like read something. It was like by 2025, if like we just keep going in this trajectory, like we'll have 1,300 filled positions in aquaculture, which is like going to cost us like $57 million, you know? And I was like, whoa, I didn't even like think about, so like now I'm like really changing my mindset towards minorities in aquaculture because it's, I hadn't realized this, but I was building something that was for that labor shortage. Like I want to give all the things that I had been talking about that I, you know, want to do with MIA and for our members, you know, certifications, you know, funding for conferences. We do fully funded internships, again, removing that financial barrier. But also like, you know, really giving them the skills that at times women aren't like, have the opportunity to like know when they work out on farms, like boater, you know, maintenance, plumbing, carpentry, welding, you know, all of these skills that we're looking for, you know, in aquaculture. And so, yeah, so I realized that, you know, I have an opportunity now to help aquaculture in more ways than I even thought I did. And with that labor shortage, you know, I'm pretty excited because, you know, a lot of our members they blow me away sometimes with just like with what they've done so far. And, you know, when I meet with them, I try to meet with every single member, you know, once just like her and I, or, you know, before they like join the community and all that, so they can ask any questions and I can really get a gauge on like what they need from MIA. And the overall kind of consensus is, one, that I am the first, you know, Black woman or woman of color that they've ever seen interested in aquaculture. But then two, it's like they have these ideas, but they're like, oh, it's not really developed. It sounds a little crazy. And I'm like, you came to the right one. Tell me what it is. So I feed off of, I'm like, it's not crazy. No. That doesn't sound crazy at all. Actually, my wheels are turning right now. And I wrote down about 14 different ideas. So like, no, you're on the right track. So I'm gonna need you to email me so we can like get this going. Like I had a member that was like from Uganda originally. And she's like, yeah, I want to be, you know, like the first, like female in Uganda to like, to work on an aquaculture farm and to have a farm. And she was like, but that's going to be a few years out. And I was like, well, you came to the right one because that is amazing. And let's make that happen. I'll do anything that I can to make sure that happens for you if that's what you want. Like it's goals like that like get me super excited. I'm like, yes, honey, let's change the world. Let's do it. I'm down.
And just as importantly, let's tell the world about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So what are some other examples of things that you've seen that have really made you feel proud that you've started MIA?
Oh, I'll try not to cry when I talk about this. I'm definitely like talking about MIA and just like the things that I love about it and the ways that it's like changed my life. I definitely get like super
and
emotional.
Other people's lives too.
Yeah. We had our first all like MIA member meeting a couple months ago. And, you know, not everybody can make it, which is totally fine. But there was a good number there. And we had such a powerful conversation. Like it was everything that I had ever dreamed of having other women of color in aquaculture, like in my space, like all of the things that like I'd ever wanted MIA to be came to fruition like in that one moment. I was a blubbering baby. I cried the entire time because it felt so real. You know, there are times where like I do MIA and like it feels real and I like, you know, do events and talk to people and things like that. But like sometimes I don't let myself feel the magnitude and, you know, kind of the presence that MIA has, you know, so far. And because I'm just like chugging along and like, what do we have to do next? What do I have to do next? All that stuff. And then when I have a moment to really realize like how much it really has impacted people, like it's amazing. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to do that. I'm just so grateful that I had the courage to do that. And a lot of women, I feel like, you know, when women in my community like thank me for that, I'm just like, no, for real, like thank you just for being another woman that, like here with me that's like trying to do this too. So yeah, I just would say all of it. I would just say like just talking to our members, you know, the connections that I've made, the things that I've gotten to do, the opportunities that I've gotten to do. I would have never imagined that my career would have gone this way, but I'm like super happy that it has. So
Yeah, going from oyster farming to founding and then managing this amazing nonprofit. It's kind of a big transition in a short period of time.
Yeah, and I want to go back. I'm an oyster farmer through and through. Like I really am. And I think that you know, I loved being an oyster farmer when I was one. And I think that in this new kind of chapter of my career, it's really validating to me that like being on the water is like really my calling, like physically being out on the water. I love all the things I'm doing now, but I think a lot of people have kind of gelled me to minorities in aquaculture, which is fine, you know, like that, you know, obviously I'm the founder and CEO, so it happens. But I think that what I haven't really expressed fully is that like I created MIA because it was something that I felt like would have really helped me in the beginning of my career. And I wanted to connect with other women of color and see what we could do. I didn't set out to be an advocate or a philanthropist or like anything like that. I would have, you know, I would have stayed in my position for, you know, another like 10 years if, you know, all that stuff didn't happen. So my goal is to get back to commercial aquaculture. My goal is to be a hatchery manager, you know, somewhere, hopefully internationally. I feel like that's like my next step. I've talked about that for years. But yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out my own career while also helping other people with theirs too. Because I realized that I didn't want to leave mine on the back burner just because I was doing MIA. I wanted to add to it. And that was a way to add to it, but also to like not really be stuck in like just doing MIA. I like have dreams to do other things and I have the platform to do it now. So yeah.
So if we have listeners who are women of color who might want to get involved with MIA, how can they do that?
Head to our website. There is a sign-up form that you can fill out that goes directly to my email, and it gives me all of your information. So I will get in touch with you and I will set up a meeting, and then that's pretty much it.
And what is that website?
www.mianpo.org. So just type in minorities in aquaculture and it should come up because that's basically what it is anyway.
Yeah, if you Google minorities in aquaculture, it's the first thing that comes up.
I have
Great search engine optimization, I gotta say.
So we've touched on it a little bit, but what is next specifically for MIA?
Yeah, so we've got our summer internships coming up. We've got a few other programs that are getting launched right now. One project that I'm super, super excited about that's going to be officially launched next month is with, you know, two of the 8 only living Black captains on the Chesapeake Bay right now, Captain Lamont Wright and Admiral Vince Leggett. You know, I met them just through like a webinar, and you know, they're a little bit older than me. They're over 60, but again, all 8 of the Black watermen or Black captains on the bay are all over the age of 60 right now. Wow. And so we are creating a program, you know, that's kind of congruent with Captain Lamont's dream of providing people the opportunity to get their captain's license and their boater safety's license and sea time and things like that. We're really trying to, again, preserve a legacy. You know, there's only 8 of them, and there's nobody, you know, if I was to get my captain's license today, I would be the youngest person, youngest Black person, youngest person of color to be a captain on the Chesapeake Bay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's, that's something that has just been super important to me. I've loved working with them. I think that, you know, I've been so honored. They've done so much just for our community and just for the Chesapeake Bay. They've seen so much. So yeah, that's a really exciting project that we're doing. And then, like I said, we have our internship program this summer. University of Louisiana Lafayette, we've got 2 internship positions down there. The Coalition Oyster South gave us a very generous donation last year at their landlocked event to have 2 to 3 interns like in the southern part of the states for oyster farmers. And then, you know, we just have like different events and stuff that we're just doing with other organizations. So this summer is going to be a pretty big summer for MIA. We're finally going to have people out on the ground, people out in the field, people, you know, at farms. I'm super excited because I get to go and I'm trying to work for it. I've already told people, I'm like, make sure it's the hardest day when I come. Like, make sure that you've got, I don't care if you've got to like scrap things together. Like, make sure it is the hardest day. Because that's like
you
want to
get your hands dirty.
Oh my God, I can't. I probably won't even like sleep. I'll be like a kid for the first day of school. I'll be so excited.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's get a little insider's perspective from a oyster farmer on the Chesapeake Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Best oysters to come out of the Chesapeake Bay.
Ooh, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. Okay, they are really great oysters, but Orchard Point Oyster Company, Scott Budden, is the only minority oyster farmer in the entire state of Maryland.
Oh my
I'm pretty
God.
sure in the Chesapeake Bay. So yeah, I support Scott 1,000%. I actually, met him right when he was like, really taking his farm to the next level, which we talk about like all the time. He like didn't know me at all, and he like asked me to pick up his seed from FedEx when I first moved back to Maryland because I was trying to look for volunteer work on farms. And so yeah, he's the only minority oyster farmer owner in the Chesapeake Bay. So go and support Orchard Point Oysters. They're really, really great, and they're a really good company to support. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, another question. So a lot of our listeners are in the production side of the seafood industry. We have like a segment of listeners who are high up at companies like that. So is there a way that they can support MIA, and what would be helpful for you to get their support?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're looking for right now is like corporate sponsors, or just like people that are really going to support our efforts to do what we want to do. I think people, when they think of nonprofit, they think it's like, there's not like money in it that like needs to like push it forward. And like, that's absolutely not true. We have a lot of ambitions with MIA, and we can impact, just women of color in the aquaculture industry so much. So, for anybody that just like wants to reach out and just like, kind of see like where our, values align and like what we could, develop, like absolutely reach out to me via email. Let's set up a meeting. But yeah, I think right now we're really looking for people within the seafood industry in general, but just like people that are just like really trying to invest in the change of aquaculture when it comes to women of color, so that we can do really great work moving forward.
Perfect. And then people can also donate too, right?
Yes. We have a donate page on there. And our donations right now, we're going to have a fundraiser that's launching soon, but our donations right now are really towards like getting the last little bit of funds for our internship program. So again, I said that they are fully funded. Our interns get paid $17.50 an hour. And that like wage will not go down any further than that. It's only going to increase the more funding that we get. And their meals are paid for, their transportation is paid for, all of housing is paid for, all of that. And any type of, gear, clothing, boots, oilskins, waiters, anything that they need, we fully want to, provide for them, again, to really remove all of those barriers and just give them a free, not a free, but like an open lane to really go develop their career on their own terms and like have those experiences. So yeah, our donations right now are going like directly towards that right now, of just really making sure that we have enough funding to really give our members this summer that, they won't forget, and just a really great experience like at their internships.
That is so impressive.
That's amazing.
That is
Thank you.
We're just sitting here with our jaws on the floor like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think that people, they should get paid for their time. I was once a little old broke oyster farmer, barely making, sad to say, $200 like every 2 weeks. Like, I know the struggle. And I never, I would say like it's a part of like the growing pains of aquaculture and science and stuff, but
it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be. Yes.
There are plenty of other growing pains that you can get when you're building a career in this industry. That doesn't need to be one.
Exactly.
That mindset of you need to, I did this, so you need to do it too. That needs to be left behind.
Especially for women of color with wage
100%.
gaps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And I've had conversations with people who, again, like want to do programs and provide, internships, like, for our members. And, they come from a really good place, but then I'm like, so what's like, the stipend going to be? They're like, oh, like, $12 an hour. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
We need a livable wage.
Yeah, because honestly, like, I would feel like I'm disrespecting the members of Minorities in Aquaculture, like taking that to them. Like, I just would feel like that I'm not honoring the things that we've been through as women of color, like in our community collectively. If I was like, hey guys, like $12 an hour, like, hopefully you can get there. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah,
like
that's a good perspective to have.
The it's better than nothing perspective is not going to work. That's not like, that's not. Yeah.
No.
You're right. You're getting experience.
Yeah. Oh God. I hate that so much. It's like exposure, like for artists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's free exposure.
It's free exposure. Well, exposure doesn't pay my rent, so.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So we're getting a little close to time here. Is there anything else that you want to get out there kind of while you have this platform? And I'm sure that we'll continue to speak in the future, but while you're here on the mic, what else do you want to get out?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing that, I guess I haven't said, or I mean, I guess I should say again, is that I'm just super thankful for, everybody out there that has supported me just like in this journey. I mean, when I launched MIA, I was not expecting the way that it's going right now at all. I don't even know what I was expecting, because I was just like a chaotic basket case, like for real, just trying to get this started. And like, I've just gotten so much love and just so much appreciation, just so much support, like just throughout this. And like I said, I've met so many incredible people and I've met so many incredible women, but even just like the other organizations, I didn't realize, I think a lot of us didn't realize at the time, but there was a cohort of, Black women in 2020 that created science, like marine science organizations at the exact same time.
Wow.
And, Minorities in Shark Science, Black and Marine Science, we were like the top 3 organizations that started, and we all started in June. And I had no idea that any of them even existed until I like saw an article about Shark Week, and I was like, Minorities in Shark Science, like, oh, and like I had already started the paperwork for MIA, and I was like, oh wow, like, okay, like this just validates that like it's not just me that's like seeing this,
Yes,
so
you're on the right path.
Yeah, like I'm on the right path. And like, even though I don't know what the heck I'm doing right now, I, know that there's other women out there that are like also showing up and like just getting it done. So yeah, I've just been super grateful for this entire experience. And I'm just super excited for like where all the things that I have coming up next in my personal, kind of career and with MIA. And yeah, so just thank you everybody again, for everybody that's listening to this. And thank you, Maddie and Sean, for having me, because you guys have amazing people on this podcast. So I was like,
oh, thank you.
I was just like, you guys talked about you being starstruck. I was like,
oh my God.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll come chat for a little bit.
No, we were super, super excited to reach out to you and have you on the show, because this is something that we've wanted to talk about for a long time, and we just haven't haven't found
the right person to talk about it.
Exactly, yeah. And Justin wanted to apologize that he wasn't able to come in. He got roped into like a 2-hour management meeting, which I'm glad we are not in right now. But so yeah, he was bummed out that he couldn't be part of this recording. But we'll get him on the next one.
Yeah, just gotta come back. That's all.
Yeah,
yes, exactly. So I just want to close out by saying thank you so much for, first of all, coming on the show, and second of all, doing the work that you're doing, Imani. I feel like you are doing something that so many people have said, like, oh, that would be such a great idea. Like, I love that idea. But it's always just an idea, and you're actually making it happen. So thank you for the work that you're doing, because it's making the entire seafood industry a better place.
Thank
100%.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
100%. So listeners, make sure that you check out the website for MIA, mianpo.org.
Yep. .org.
And make sure you check that out. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. But yeah, I think that's what we got.
It's a wrap.
Maddie, you got anything else?
No.
Well, thank you so much to everyone that's listening, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Folks, that was our conversation with Imani Black, the founder and CEO of Minorities in Aquaculture. And we really hope that you enjoyed the interview. We hope that you learned something. And if you did, then be sure to subscribe on your podcast platform that you're listening to us on right now so that you can get every episode downloaded right to your device.
Remember to find us on Twitter at Aquademia Pod or contact us through the forum at globalseafood.org/podcast.
And if you're feeling in the mood, leave us a rating and review and let us know if you're liking the show.
That's it. So thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Ciao.